Hi guys, hope you're well. This is actually my first live stream live on LinkedIn, so hopefully it works. But if it doesn't, I'm sure someone will soon kind of let me know. So for about 3 months now, since the start of lockdown, I started the challenge to learn to live stream, and then that has since expanded into YouTube, podcasting, and everything that kind of goes with this. And it was always one of my aims that I wanted to create something which was all about talking to real business people, not always the kind of celebrities that you see, but actually sharing kind of real stories from people that are going on their own journey. We talk about strategy and entrepreneurship and lots of kind of different things, but likewise really kind of dig into the people behind the brands and behind the business. So far, I've been lucky enough to interview the guy that runs Google in the UK and Europe, professional boxers, and all these kind of interesting people that, for me, it's about sharing their story in kind of, giving you the chance to ask questions, and then over time just building up this kind of wealth of knowledge and, different things and different points of view from lots of different people. So I'm going to bring him straight in. We're going to have a chat, and then hopefully you find it interesting. But if you've got any questions, comments, whatever, please kind of hit me up. So Kriss, there we go. You're now live. Would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everybody.
Perfect. So we first met, it was at the Northeast Expo.
Northeast Expo in 2019.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yes.
And we were sat having coffee. And was it Joe from Lumo, I think we were sat with? And anyway, and it was just, we'd never met, and it was a business kind of networking event. And actually, I just instantly quite liked you, and I liked the, your vibe and what you were doing. And likewise, I think for a lot of people who are kind of starting on their own kind of business journey, I'd really like to explore and talk that through, through that today. Is that cool?
Yeah, go ahead.
So would you like to tell people a bit more about yourself, where you're from, what's your kind of background?
I've been a lift engineer all my life. I started as an apprentice lift engineer back in 1999 for Stanner Lifts. I worked with them all the way through to being technical sales for about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked a couple of years for Kia Construction, which I believe you worked briefly for Kia.
A little bit.
Yeah. I worked 2 years for them. And then I worked 3 years as a service director, hands-on service director for a small independent lift company. And then decided I can do this myself.
Yeah, cool. So one of the things I like to do, which hopefully people find interesting, is almost walk through the journey, because what's quite interesting is that you'll have a lot of people who are, I don't know, 15, 16, 17, 20, 30, that might have 50, that might have ambitions to do their own thing. But likewise, one of my previous guests is a guy called Martin, who again from the Northeast, who's set up a really successful company. But for him, it was sharing the stories of people that you can relate to as you're growing up. That like, if he can do it, I can do it. Is that cool? So almost like, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Walkerville.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then were you good at school, or you're not? Like, did you always have a drive to kind of do your own thing?
I was always good at school at the technical, the hands-on stuff, but not at the English, not at the not at the history, not at the geography. Yeah, but everything else, yeah, fine.
No, fair enough. So if walk us through the journey from your career, and like as you kind of went through, and if we can just like stick to the good stuff, although feel free to talk about the everything, but we tend not to name drop if there's anything negative. Just I'm very conscious this is now live to a lot of people.
Just nothing negative.
So like basically, what was your journey through to the point where you thought, you know what, I could do this myself?
I'd worked for Stana for 15 years. And it was I got to a stage where it was quite easy to produce their money. As a technical sale, was okay as a lift engineer. Was good at technical sales, so but there was no progression in the company, which is why I sidestepped to a smaller independent lift company where there was a chance of progression. And then, but working there for 3 years, it was hard work. I realised that the progression wasn't what I wanted. It was my own business that I wanted.
Mm-hmm. So, would you like to describe kind of what the business is and what you do?
So we are Rise Elevators. The name's on the tin. We we supply, install, repair, and maintain lifts, escalators, through the floor lifts, disabled people, stair lifts, and everything else in between. So you've got the odd car lift and hoist and things like that. But generally lifts.
Because one of the things I always actually appreciate is that for most businesses, and I think some people get this wrong, arguably, even mine isn't perfect. I like a business that says what it does. So if your name is on the tin, what do you do? We do elevators. It takes the customer on a whole journey. So I live near Team Valley, and you have hundreds of businesses, and you go past some of them, and there's a fancy logo and a name, but you don't know what they do. So actually, I kind of appreciate, I guess what you're all about. So how did you find the process of actually kind of setting up your own business? Almost from the day you decided you'd do it, what were the kind of challenges and things that you went through?
Well, the first thing was deciding the name that somebody hadn't used. And I realized that like you say, a brand was better than a business. I could have called myself KM Lifts, but I didn't. Realize that brand and the business from the start was better. I come up with the name Rise, and then come up with what we do for the letters. So refurbishments, installation, service, and examination. And then I spoke to one of our suppliers who I've thanked the other day on LinkedIn. Any Display created me brand and created me logo, created the t-shirts, done me vans. They did everything in one hit for us, and that was it. That was his set, and incorporated the business and got going.
So did you, I hope you don't mind me asking, but this is all about, it's to educate other people as they go through the same kind of journey.
Yeah.
Did you go to the bank and raise money to buy the equipment, to buy the vans, or were you lucky enough to get it from parents? I'm just trying to think about the structures of how you went through the process.
No, so it was I did it the hard way. I basically every day for I think 3 or 4 weeks, I drove my wife to work. I used that car. I worked out the back of her car until I could afford to pay for a monthly payment on a van. So I took no loan whatsoever.
No, but like you will, I'm sure you already do, but it's almost anyone that's willing to bootstrap it and almost do it the hard way to generate cash if you can, then reinvest that without actually borrowing. It's so much harder to do, but actually if you can get it to work, it's the fact there's no interest payments, you own 100% of the equity, and that's
the biggest thing. Yeah.
So like, would you?
The biggest thing is not having to pay out. Is trying to build the money so you've paid something off and then you move on to the next thing. We're lucky enough that we've paid off my main vehicle, and I've just bought another van for the new engineer, and just bought it and paid it off outright. It's great to be able to do that, but again, you've got to make sure that you put some money aside, and that's a lot of people are spent on the wrong thing at the wrong time.
It's actually quite good because when I was at a client today. Luckily, I got changed before this because it was really hot and sweaty today. But actually, I always try and treat myself as I would anyone else's business. So there's always toys and kit that you want to buy. Obviously, I'm into my tech, as we mentioned before the call. But actually, it's like, no, I don't need it yet. I don't need it yet. And it's almost, you never know what's going to happen. Obviously, we're expecting a fairly challenging time moving forward. So actually, it's trying to just balance, say, the books in a way that both helps you plan for the future but still protects what you've got. So I appreciate your values in doing that way, as opposed to, you do also get a lot of people, often more in tech, where they almost from the outset want to raise money through external providers to then spend to grow, and then raise more and spend it, as opposed to generating cash straight away. And I know this obviously varies on different types of business, but actually one of the reasons I like to talk about it, because there might be some young tech entrepreneurs that actually like learning from yourself. So that's, I think it's always quite interesting.
Yeah, and the biggest thing around that is that they need to know exactly how much it's going to cost, because some things don't cost what you think they're going to cost. Yeah. So we bought a test tool that was only £800, which is still a lot of money. It was only £800, but every time we update it, it's 60, 150, £250 to update it. So you've got to make sure that you know how much it's going to cost you in the long run.
Yeah, cool. So how long have you been going at the moment?
9 and a bit months, and nearly 10 months.
So actually, we started at exactly the same time, give or take. Which is
yes, yeah, and so did me son at the same time. When he was at the NA Expo at the same time, and he had just started as well.
I remember, because you don't look old enough to have a son who's in his 20s, I'm guessing.
22, yeah.
Yeah. But it's either that or it's a sign that I'm getting older, and it's just, you still picture yourself as being a young buck, but actually not so much anymore. So for the business, how has lockdown treated you? Like, has it been steady? Has it dropped off? How's the kind of impact been?
So we, from the start, so with the way I built the business was, I realised that I wasn't going to win big contracts straight away. No, people like to see trust in a business, so I wasn't going to win big contracts. So what I did was I went out to all the other lift companies, said, I'm a subcontractor. Most of them know is I'm a subcontractor. I charge this much per hour, this much per day. Would you consider using us when you need us? And at the very start, I was getting bits and pieces off a lot of different lift companies. But then COVID hit, they furloughed all their engineers, and then everybody needed assistance. So we were working 6-7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So it's been painful.
Almost, it's a brave or quite a clever decision that, when obviously this is like a business strategy related podcast and kind of show, but almost it's almost to actually go out to what are competitors in many ways and say, actually, look, if you're ever at capacity, then use me. It's a very good sales message because it's non-threatening, because if they don't need you, they don't need, but it gives people the option. Of the way I was to kind of describe it, it's good to have weapons in your arsenal if you need to flex up and down. Actually, I know Kriss, I like Kriss, I'll use him for this. But then I guess you've also got the side of, you still have to eat, so likewise, if no work comes out from those guys, it's how do you do your sales and promotion? I know you're quite into your social media.
Yeah, social media is quite a big part of it. But then again, it's tapping into different, so a little bits of different different areas. So obviously, for myself, we've got property investors, then we've got property managers, sales and letting agencies, obviously other lift companies, construction companies. So just going to the companies that I know would work. Obviously, the big Kia construction, they would need to see massive turnover to work with them. And from working from past. So you don't go to the companies that that you're not going to get anything from. Waste your time.
No, it's a good chat, because actually I had a chat today and we were talking about how you get a lot of companies who they do a lot of actually quite good marketing, so they raise awareness on whatever they do, but they often miss the key step, which is actually the chat up line, the ask. And I always try and kind of equate, rightly or wrongly, business development to dating. It's like chatting a girl up at the bar. That likewise, you can't just, or you shouldn't just walk straight up as soon as you walk into a bar and just, and try and just go for it, or it won't work. And then likewise on the frequency of, if you chat up a girl or boy and it doesn't work, you can't then go back to them the next day and do the same thing. It just doesn't work. But some people try that with sales. And then likewise with marketing, you get a lot of people that do a lot of show and tell, and they do great Twitter and whatever, but they never actually just ask prospective customers, what do we have to do to work together? Is there anything we can do? If you need me, get in touch. And I think it's trying to find the balance of the real world mix of people getting to know and like Kriss, which is what your brand is all about, that actually if they have a requirement, they pick up the phone. And that can sometimes take 2, 3, 4, 5 years in gestation. But
sometimes you get an email 3 years down the line. Yeah. So I had somebody phone us the other day and said, "Do you remember me?" I could recognize his name. The name was still on my phone. I recognised his voice, but I could not remember where it was from, and it was from a job in Manchester. He says, "I spoke to you 5 years ago when he worked at Stanner, and I'm having problems with my current lift provider. Can you help?"
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the dream. It's like, in the meantime, it's the fact that you must have stayed on his radar somehow, And that is, for me, is what your live stream is, what your social media is. It's that people hopefully get to know who you are, and then you just stay around and show that you're credible and you know what you talk about. But you still need to combine it with the ability to do the job and get a good reputation. So I appreciate anyone that kind of, chips in and that kind of thing. So can I ask you about the business itself? How many people have you got now? What's your kind of ambitions?
We've got a massive 3 people, which is it's still good for 19 months of trading. So yeah, we've got 3 people, and everything's going well. We'd like to try and get somebody to deal with the office side. Currently, that's an expense that I know that it will be cheaper in-house, but I'm currently farming that out. And there is some good people out there who can do virtual PR and virtual
office,
virtual accountancy and office stuff. We're a 24-hour business, so it's quite hard in that respect. It's expensive.
Because on that kind of point is that I think it's a massive jump for anyone to almost have the confidence to employ their first person. I think it is a big deal. And it's, so I really appreciate that. And then likewise with the whole aim of this, it's about just talking openly about what we do. So for instance, historically businesses I've run in the past, when it was just me, I would just do the old fashioned way spreadsheets and then do my annual tax return. But actually I recently signed up to Quickbooks, which isn't flash. It's funny actually. I'm still I registered for VAT not that long ago, and soon, I guess with yourself, it's almost I need to learn how to do my first VAT return. And it's all these little things that in time, I could tell you how to write the book to grow a business, but some of the details I think not enough people talk about, and that's why I kind of like dig into it. So I appreciate anyone that's almost going through the same kind of thing.
Ask somebody he does similar to what I do, but he's on the south coast. He says, what do you use for your account? He says, I use QuickBooks. How do you use it? I use this package, and I adopted it, and it helps the business a lot, and within that, obviously we discussed before forecasting. There's a new forecasting option. You plan your cash flow within it, and I think it's £5 a month to plan your cash flow, and it's worth for some businesses starting off.
No, cool. Because I must say, on the other point, when you were saying about how it can be expensive to get extra people and extra resource into a business, one of the things that I'm actually very hot on, rightly or wrongly, is that for one, I like to outsource stuff because I don't like fixed overheads. But likewise, I'm not a big fan of having people within a business, unless you get to a certain size, that are non-billable. So especially for a small business, in theory, you want everyone to be able to pay their own way. Because if they're not, so prime example, if you have someone that's on 20 grand a year, it might be that you need to turn over another 200,000 just to stay still, if that makes sense.
Yes,
and it's almost where, people I advise, it's trying to find the balance between, each business has its own nuance, but then likewise, depending on what your big ambition is for, so for yourself, what's the big dream for kind of 10, 15 years, 20 years time? Have you ever thought that through?
I haven't had time to think it through really, but to have a good team around us. I'd like to eventually have some sort of showroom with, obviously, where people can. If you go and buy a lift now, you can't go and look at one unless it's in somebody's premises. So I'd like to say there's a showroom here for some of the bigger manufacturers. They would use an independent lift company for showroom purposes. I think the little thing would help the business, and it helps with overheads.
But what I like about what you do, and again, if you're looking at your brand position and the change in kind of marketing, it's the fact that you're looking to deliver and do something that your competitors don't currently do. So you're actually innovating in every different level of the business. That it's that balance of where if there are different lift engineers, you want the emotional reason to use you as opposed to someone else. And actually, if the classic example is Apple stores, the Apple do make good laptops, but arguably they're no better than PCs or whatever. But what they have done is create the brand around it. But it's the fact that you can go and play with them and interact them, and it's the whole thing, how it works together. As well, likewise, when you go into Alden Square in Newcastle, the Samsung store is never that busy. And so that's where the passion of Kriss needs to come through, or I guess Steve Jobs historically, to differentiate yourself, which is quite cool. So one of the things I like to ask everyone, and I must have full disclosure, I did send through my questions to Kriss earlier on, is that, it's really good to kind of share knowledge and experience and that kind of thing. What would you say are like the top 3 things that a lot of kind of business owners get wrong when they set up?
Well, we've already discussed. I think cash and how it flows into the business is the biggest thing. So what people need to do for cash flow is to have good payment terms. So that's the biggest thing that people need to look at, payment terms, and having some customers won't want to pay a deposit. So if they don't want to pay a deposit, then you need to have some other way of generating money for them. So I work with a financial advisor who them a little amount. They keep a hold of the money, but it's in our best interest that he's get a hold of it until the job's done, and then I get it. At least we're both financially secure. So that's the biggest thing is moving money around. Otherwise, you can buy a lift and it could be 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds. It's a big outlay, and they're not going to give somebody who's set up for 3 months that sort of money. So that's I think that's the top one that people would need to do in my sort of industry.
Because do you mind if we kind of riff off this a little bit? Because actually, in a former job, I was brought in as MD to help take the company forward, and when I was kind of looking at everything the company had, and I do talk about this in the book as well, but it's almost where one of the things that they were quite fortunate with, they had a high cash position, just because it was a 40-year-old business, very profitable for a long time. And what I kind of realized is actually, if you're a machine shop or a lift engineer or whatever, depending on the assets and stuff that you've got in the bank, which could be cash, it could be a warehouse, it could be whatever, just the ability to offer the same product, arguably it could even be more expensive, but you can offer it on 90 or 100-day payment terms because you can afford to, could make your business absolutely take off. And in the long term, it won't actually cost you anything other than the cost of capital that you could spend elsewhere. But it's these kind of things that the more you properly understand all the nuances of even like the challenge that your customers face, it might be that they're really cash strapped. So actually, if you can do various different things, it makes their life easier. You could be the go-to person versus your competitors that are like, no, 30 days, that's it. And it's, people often, they don't always think through everything they could deploy and use to make their business better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so one of them things was it was a catch-22. So I couldn't work with certain companies because they didn't want to pay a deposit, but I couldn't trust them to pay us on time. And then the bigger companies who want us to do the work for them, but I didn't have the overhead. So actually, it was talked about in the North Tyneside Business Forum. I went and told them that one of the tenders was just turning away small companies, and they changed the terms and conditions of the tender so that small companies could apply, because they were asking for like £5 million turnover, where you're not going to have a £5 million turnover, but you can still do the job.
You get that quite a lot in oil and gas, where if you try and bid jobs which are too big relative to your size, excuse me, the client sees it as being too risky, because it's all of the cash flow and the things that come off it as well. So it's trying to find the common sense approach that works, for different environments.
There's a good way around that. So I found out that with most manufacturers of a product, if they're over a certain size, you pay a parent company guarantee. So you pay them a small deposit. So I bought a lift for £40,000. It was £325 for a parent company guarantee. The customer transfers the money direct to them. The product is owned by the customer. The contract's between the customer and the factory. But when it gets delivered, then I fit it and then they pay me. And that was the way I did a couple of jobs.
Yeah, cool. I've really kind of enjoyed catching up, and just for the people that might be new to the way I kind of tend to do this, is that I've really enjoyed kind of listening about the business and all the different kind of sides of what we're talking about. But I also like my guests to almost share some of the knowledge that they've had, in the idea that, there's a lot of people that might watch this, or there might be nobody that watches this, but you get the point. And the first question I like to ask is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever had?
the best piece of advice I ever had was from my old manager at Stana, and he said, "Don't be scared of the people who don't like you. They're only jealous of you."
I think it's true.
And
it's when
you get people. He says it's not that they don't like you. They just don't. They're just totally jealous of what you're doing and how you're moving forward. And that's it.
I think that's 100% correct. And often, so often you can get inside your own head, because a chat I had today is that with being a small business owner or otherwise, nobody's going to push you. You have to champion yourself. But then there's also the worry about, so again, with this live stream, what if some people don't like it? And actually for me, I decided to live stream on Facebook, but also my personal Facebooks. A lot of my friends and family never actually see what I do for work. And this is something I'm passionate about, and I love talking to different people. But if they don't like it, just unfollow me. Do you know what I mean? And it's the classic thing, I guess, to do with sales, is that you have a standard deviation bell curve of people that are early adopters, that really like Kriss, they know what you do, and they buy into what Rise is all about. And then you're going to have people at the other end of the curve that just don't like you, hate your guts, whatever. But actually, when you kind of understand that, I'm okay with that. And one prime example is that recently I got near 18,000 people on LinkedIn, but actually about 400 have unfollowed me. And they could be, when you get spam from China where they just want to sell you stuff and they're just going through loads of people, or it might be people that just don't like me. But actually, I'm okay with that, because actually, hopefully there's 400 people that don't mind me. And it's having the thick skin to just do it anyway. If you think it's the right thing to do, just do it. Because actually, if I don't, nobody else cares if I can't pay my mortgage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you've got 17,600 people who do.
Well, no, I think half of them aren't bothered, but it's just, but the thing, because one of my classic things is that realistically, when I set up on my own, obviously same time you did, my approach was, I'm going to give it everything I've got. And if it doesn't work, if I've tried the best I can, I'll happily get another job. But what I didn't want to do is get to X point in the future, maybe it hasn't quite worked, and I know I kind of half-arsed it, if that makes sense. So one of the reasons were just from my background, because I know a lot about cameras and tech, I thought, well, actually, I think I can probably figure out this live streaming thing, and I've got some ambitions to kind of take it on, because why not? It's almost just kind of use what you've got in some ways. And the other question, which I'd like to ask, which again I ask everyone, is that if you were to give advice to your younger self, and you can pick any age, any background, it could be 9 months ago, it could be 10 years ago, what would it be?
It'll be similar to what the manager said to us. Similar sort of time when I didn't know how I wanted to move forward in life, how I was going to. I was happy within the company I was in, but I wanted to move forward. So basically, it's slow down, think it through again before you've made that decision, reevaluate, and then move on. And the only way you can do it is by just stopping, even write it down and think about it again before you've made that decision, because you could make the wrong decision, go the wrong way in life.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of people doing that, the sidestep, a lot of times in companies, and they could actually move forward if they just thought about it.
Yeah. I think on 2 points, I think it's really interesting. I completely agree. One, actually, former guest, a guy called Matt McGough, runs Ithaca Films in Middlesbrough. His best of advice was actually to do with, if business is a marathon and it can go on for 20 odd years, why are you trying to sprint? Why are you trying to do everything in the first year? And actually, for me, that kind of hit home, because obviously everyone's got ambitions and you've got stuff you want to do. But actually, if it takes a bit longer, that's fine. And I thought it was a really kind of good piece of advice. But actually, earlier today, one of my former guests, a guy called Craig Fenton, and he's the guy that runs Google in the UK and Europe. And he was interviewing a guy who was former Royal Marines. And he was, I was in the gym this morning and watching this podcast. And basically, he was saying that he was in a really bad battle that he won the Victoria Cross from. And apparently, they had this thing where he was in the back of the armored vehicle and he had to exit to then engage with enemies that actually had them pinned down. So it was a cock on the block kind of time. And I think how he described it was almost where, I think they called it cigar time, where basically he burst out the van, got into protection, then he just took 2-3 seconds just to kind of reassess, in theory have a cigar, that was the joke, clear head, then decide what to do. And actually, I'm going to comment on Craig's video because I never got a chance this morning. But it was sometimes you just pick up different things. Again, there's no rush. So if you're looking to leave your job, start a business, leave your partner, do whatever, either get advice. Like, did you get advice from other people to say, like, look, I'm thinking about doing this, what do you think? Or did you just know you were gonna do it?
It was what I should have done in the first place. I sat for 4 years thinking it through all the time. That's what I should have done.
But the thing is, like, people often underestimate it. Is that I teach people how to do this, and I was second guessing it a lot because there's a lot of risk. You know, there's all of the financial stuff, but then there's a big pride thing where actually, what if I do it and fail? And then you worry about what other people think. But actually, sometimes you just need to have the conviction and just go for it. But I applaud anyone that does, because it is scary and you don't know what's going to happen. So no, I appreciate that. Before we kind of wrap up, is there anything you want to talk about or plug or that kind of thing?
As usual, which is what I always try and plug on LinkedIn and Facebook is, and I have wrote them down so I don't forget them. Is the suppliers and other businesses who help us, and if they're who help us. So we've got my website, Ellen, Contact by the Sea, absolutely brilliant. Any day, they've done everything for us. They make me lift interiors, the print stickers for my buttons, they do all my design, my vans. They make the custom makers, plastic items. Just absolutely brilliant, Clarissa and Angela. And then I've got, obviously, my son, Joe Lawson, videography. He'll be videoing one of our jobs this week. We're going to refurbish Annex Hospital lift. It's a 1960s lift, and then we're going to refurbish it, hopefully, to nice and as new as we can for the money that we spent. And then we use a company based in London who, just to show we do also use national companies, but he helps us through everything. He's given us a bit of business advice. I've been using them for 20 years, 16 years. PEW in London. They're a wholesaler who supplied to the lift industry, and they're just really good company to work with.
I respect that, because actually often you're the first person. A lot of the people I speak to do professional service type things where they don't necessarily buy and sell kit, or stock. But actually, I think it's a really good point that it's the importance of your suppliers, because one of the things that I've found as well is that it's if they lost trust in you, it could cripple a business. And again, you can't necessarily quantify trust, but it's massively important. Or likewise, if you're in the shit and you need a bit of help to get something turned around, if they like you, they'll probably do it. And if they don't, they'll hang you out to dry. So I think it's almost.
Well, that's why I plug PEW in London. I use them when I work at Stannard, multi-million-pound turnover, and he straight away gives a £1,000 credit limit as soon as I started, because he trusts me. He knows that I would pay him back, no matter what. So I got my credit limit straight away, which helped. I didn't need it. It just means that I can place an order online on my phone, and the part's going to be there the following day without having to wait to pay something. And that does help. It does help.
That's cool. Well, I appreciate your time this evening. Moving
Thank you
forward,
very much.
and for anyone that hasn't kind of seen this before, I clip it all up and it goes onto YouTube, and then it also goes onto the iTunes store, Google, Spotify, or there's like a podcast. And then you'll probably now see this on everything from Twitch to Facebook to Twitter to Instagram to lots of different things. And again, it's just trying to share the awareness and stuff on really good people like Kriss, sharing their story. Hopefully, I'm going to be doing this for many more years to come. And if you want to be a guest, please kind of get in touch. And again, it's just, for me, it's about real people, real businesses, real kind of stories. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the time for anyone that's watched, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Thank you very much.
All right.
See you later, Steve.
Cheers, Kriss. Thanks, bye.
Yes, bye.